Hey guys, what I want to do now is create our database and our tables. Alright, so I'm going to go to phpMyAdmin and we want to log in and create a new database. And I'm going to call this job finds. Okay, and we're going to need a few tables. The first one is going to be the categories table, and this will only have 2 columns. Okay, so we're going to have an ID and we're going to have a name. ID is going to be the primary key and auto increment. Name will be varchar, and we'll give it 100 max characters. Alright, so pretty simple. The next table that I want to have is the types table, and that'll have 3 fields. So we'll have an ID, we'll have a name, and we'll have a color, because if you can see here that the types will have different background colors. Alright, so ID will be an int, it's going to be auto increment and primary, and then name varchar, and that'll be, we'll do 100. Color, same thing. Okay, save that. And the next one is users. Okay, this will have 8 fields. Okay, so we'll have an ID, first name, last name, email, username, password, role, and created. Alright, now before we go any further, I just want to mention that CakePHP has a strict naming convention, and database tables are part of that convention. Basically, created is used for a create date. Okay. Role should be used if you're going to use roles like admin or whatever. It's up to you. And also, if you have a foreign key, for instance, our jobs table will have a user ID field that'll be linked with the users table ID, and the convention is to use user_ID. Alright, our jobs will also have a type ID, so the name of that field should be type ID. Alright, but I'll go into that more in a minute. So let's finish this. The ID is auto increment, primary. Okay, all these can be varchar. Created. It's going to be a date time, and I'm going to set the default to null. We're going to handle that from within Cake, and then I'm just going to put 100 for all these. Alright, save. Alright, so now we want to do the jobs, which will be the biggest table, and that's going to have 11 fields. Alright, so we'll have an ID for our primary key. Alright, and then we're going to have, this is what I was saying, category ID, which has to be named like this if you want to be able to use your relationships, things like that. I know some people might want to just put category, but of course you can do that. There's just, you'd have to do more work, and you couldn't take advantage of all all the options that Cake gives you. So we're going to name it category ID, and that's going to be excuse me, an integer. We'll say 11 for these. It's also going to have a user ID and also a type ID. Alright, it's going to have a company name, a title, a description, city, state, contact email, and a created field. Alright, so company name, put in 100 for these. Description, we're going to use text. And then created will be date time, and is going to be null. Alright, so that's our jobs table. So that's our database. So I want to insert some sample data. So we want to go to SQL. You should have this file called SQL snippets, which basically lets us, we're going to insert some categories, types, users, and jobs. So I'm going to copy the categories query. Alright, so that should give us some categories. Next we'll do the types. Okay, next we'll do the users. And the jobs. Alright, so you can see we now have some data. Now we're ready to install CakePHP. So I'm going to close that up and go to the cakephp.org site and click on download, which will give us a zip file. And what we want to do is open up that zip file and grab everything. We don't need, there's a couple things we don't need. We don't need these Git files. The README and contributing we don't need. So let's just take what we have here and copy it and paste it into your htdocs job finds folder. Alright, so we have the files uploaded. Now let's go to localhost / job finds, and this is basically the start page for any CakePHP application. Alright, so there's a few things we need to do here. Let's start at the top. Now we need to change the value of security.salt in the config/core PHP folder. Alright, so let's go to that. In the app, config, and what was it? Core. Okay, let's open that up. I'm going to navigate to the job finds directory here, so I don't have to keep going through Windows. Alright, so this is the core file, and we want to look for the security.salt. And that would be right here. Alright, so this is the string we need to change. Basically what I usually do is, with things like this, just change a few characters. Change that to an A, change this to a J, we'll change the 2 to a 6, I to a U, I to a K, and that should be fine. And then here as well, the security dot cipher seed, you can see that it's also asking us to change that. So let's do that. And this can be anything you want. Alright, so if we go ahead and save that, okay, now those errors are gone. Next, alright, so these are the success we're using PHP 5.2.8 or higher. The temporary directory is writable, and the file engine is being used for core coaching. So if any of these are red or yellow on your system, just go ahead and make sure that this folder is writable. You may want to upgrade your version of PHP to at least 5.3. And then down here, our database configuration file is not present, so we need to go to the config directory and change the name of database.php.default to just database.php. So let's do that. Okay, so in the same config folder, let me see if we can rename this. Rename. Alright, so what we want to do is just get rid of this default. Alright, so let's go ahead and open the database file, and if you scroll down you should see this database config class, and this is where we're going to put our credentials. Alright, so host is correct, localhost, login, which is the user of the database, password, and database name, I believe, was job finds. And you have basically two different environments you can work in. We have the default, and then we have a testing environment as well. And I'm just going to use the same for the testing. Okay, so let's save that. Okay, so now we should be connected to the database. Now we have one more configuration, and that's to install debug kit. So what we're going to do here is click on the link to the GitHub page, open it in a new tab, and I'm going to go ahead and download the zip, and then open that up. Open this debug kit master folder, and then I'm going to go to my job finds app plugin folder and create a new folder there and call it debug kit, and we just want to bring all these files over. Okay, so let's go back to our application and reload, and it looks like we're still getting it. Oh, and it looks like I spelled debug wrong. Okay, so we need to just fix this. Still, debug kit is not installed. Very strange. Actually, I think we need to enable it in config/bootstrap PHP. And right here, we just want to uncomment this. Actually, let's just move it out of this block. Okay, so let's save that. There we go. Alright, so we have our database created, we have our application installed and configured. In the next video, we'll probably get into controllers and possibly views and layouts and things like that. Alright, so I will see you in the next video.